Okay, Rich, I think we are good to go.
Awesome. Well, hello, everybody. We at the USAEL are excited to kick off today's edition of the Career in Esports webinar series.
This is episode 6 in our recurring series that aims to provide students, educators, and esports enthusiasts with a unique opportunity to explore a multitude of jobs and career pathways in esports.
That's right. And you all should know the deal by now. Every month, we talk to a different expert from the world of esports and gaming. The roster includes professional players, coaches, game developers, tournament organizers, and others to give our listeners firsthand insights and expert advice on pursuing a career in the industry.
Our guest list is full of industry veterans, stemming from companies and organizations that have established a significant presence in the space, with Blizzard Entertainment, Riot Games, Bungie, and Overwatch League, just to name a few.
But as usual, let's first begin with some introductions. I'm Mario, Rich Conti,
And I'm Luigi Peter Poligolov.
and we are your recurring hosts for the Career in Esports series.
Rich, are you excited to introduce our next guest today?
Oh, absolutely. Today we are talking to somebody with experience in both coaching collegiate esports and working in AAA as a production engineer.
And I think the company name Bungie might ring a bell for some of our gaming fans out there.
So without further ado, it is my privilege to introduce to our audience Jordan Runyan, a senior production engineer at Bungie. Thank you for being here today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Really excited to share my experiences and hopefully, inspire some people to want to work in games.
Absolutely. And some key moments from Jordan's career include being the esports coach at the University of Utah, working as a test analyst at Blizzard Entertainment, and currently working as a senior production engineer at Bungie.
Yeah, and so hey, Jordan, really quickly for those in the audience, can you tell us a little bit about what exactly a senior production engineer is all about?
Yeah, so a production engineer is not a currently an industry-wide position. It's kind of unique to Bungie. We of course have engineers in general across the industry, but production engineers are kind of unique. Um, our role is really interesting because game development is just so complex, right? Especially in a larger studio where you have a lot of different teams and disciplines working together, but production engineers kind of fit right in the middle where we can connect all of these different teams and kind of understand what's going on and be able to help those teams work together and more efficiently. And say they run into problems, whether it's with their tools or they're trying to design or build some piece of content, they usually will come to us first and see if we can help them get unblocked or if there's like a different way to do things rather than have to go to say like main engineering or whatever and develop some bigger process. Sometimes it's a simple solution and we can either unblock them there, or if we need to escalate problems, we can take it over to the main engineering teams responsible. So that's kind of a wordy answer, but basically we're there to help answer questions, solve problems, and if we don't know the answer, we sure know who does, and we'll take it to the right team to figure that out.
Definitely seems like a very cool, even though a little bit of a specific role in the greater game design esports industry. But speaking of gaming, that's actually a great transition, and we'll jump ahead into our first question here.
So Jordan, can I ask what role gaming has played in your life and where did you start gaming?
Yeah, so clear back when I was very young, I grew up with a Super Nintendo, and one of the first games I ever played was Super Mario World and Donkey Kong Country and Super Metroid, some of those classics for the Super Nintendo. And I also have some really fond memories of watching my uncles play the original Warcraft, Warcraft 2, and StarCraft. They had 2 or 3 different computers in their house, which in the early 90s was less common. And I would run from room to room watching them play on their local network, which was really fun. But as I got older, I still played games. I at one point sold enough popsicles and lemonade on a hot summer week in Houston, Texas, to make enough money to build my own computer, just kind of part by part. And from there, I became more interested in kind of computers as well as, PC gaming and whatnot. And then as I went through high school and eventually college, I just kind of built on that interest in games and gaming, as well as computers and engineering and all of that. So kind of a long history there, but it's always stuck with me of my passion for games and gaming.
That's awesome. And I believe you also brought gaming to the University of Utah as well. Can you tell us can you tell us a little bit about the creation of Crimson Gaming?
Yeah, so I don't want to take all the credit because it definitely wasn't me alone. But during my time there at the University of Utah, there was already like a League of Legends club at the time. This was back in 2015. And League of Legends was very popular and still is very popular today. And during my time there, TESPA, which I don't believe is really so much a thing anymore, but at the time it was like growing to be the collegiate organization across the US and Canada for just like an organization to kind of house gaming on campuses. And we had a TESPA chapter during my first year there. And after a year or two, we saw that this kind of umbrella organization we were trying to fit in to the TESPA chapter was mostly just focused on League. And so we wanted to expand that to all gaming on campus so that everyone had like a home for gaming on campus, is kind of what we said. And so we, being myself, Sam Morris, and Angie Klingsick, founded Crimson Gaming, which was kind of a nod to the University of Utah's roots of Crimson, like the Crimson Club, which was a long-standing tradition of like their sports history. So we took that to translate over to gaming, which was a very natural fit. And it's still a very strong club today, one of the largest clubs on campus. I believe last I checked, they have like over 1,000 something people in their Discord, and it's pretty active. So still going quite strong. And then eventually we expanded that to a varsity level, and we were able to found a varsity esports program at the U as well.
Jordan, would you say there are a lot of parallels between competitive esports and traditional sports?
Oh, absolutely. And every game, every sport has its own intricacies and particular things that are different. But at a high level, coaching players of any specialization is going to have very similar themes. You're working with, whether it's kids in grade school or college or even professionals, they all have a goal in mind, right? And they all have a passion behind why they're doing it. And esports is really no different from traditional sports when it comes to that area. And so it's certainly a growing industry. I wouldn't say it's at the same level as traditional sports yet, but it's certainly growing even from when I was in college. And I'm excited to see where it is in the next 5 or 10 years.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Rich, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we've even seen some data showing that global worldwide esports has already exceeded the viewership of sport associations like the NFL or the NBA.
Yeah, there are some major events, and especially spread out between multiple streaming platforms, right? Where people can watch. Their viewership is getting high up there for sure.
Absolutely. Perfect. Well, we will jump into our next question. So Jordan, we do know that you ended up actually changing your major, but why did you first choose to pursue electrical engineering?
Yeah, so I always kind of had a knack for math and science growing up. It was just something I was drawn to. I found myself always really interested in science. And um, as I was nearing graduation in high school, kind of looking, oh, what do I want to study in college? Um, Engineering felt like a very natural choice for me because I worked enjoying with computers or enjoyed working with computers. It seemed like a good fit and matched with kind of my academic strengths and interests to go into computer and electrical engineering.
And you mentioned saving enough money to build a PC. Did you build that for gaming or any specific game in particular?
So I believe one of the first games I remember playing on it was uh, Warcraft 2. I don't believe I built it specifically for any one game. I just wanted to have my own computer that I could use for games or whatever, so I didn't have to just use my dad's computer all the time. Um, and so it was a just a good goal for me to be like, I want to make this amount of money, and sat down with my dad and kind of calculated out this is how much I'll need and made it happen.
It
That's fun.
seems like it's almost like the first step in any gamer's career or in anyone pursuing computer science or game development is like building your first computer is that like moment that you always remember that sticks with you.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
but did you find that anything you learned while studying electrical engineering might have applied to your times in the game industry?
Definitely. So during, I would say probably my first year or two, um, they really try and teach you how to think like an engineer, which is a skill that you don't usually already have coming right out of high school. Some people have opportunities to uh, do things like robotics or other types of engineering focused clubs or projects in grade school, but I didn't have those kinds of classes or many opportunities like that. And so uh, thinking like an engineer is is definitely a skill that um, I grew into. Being able to think abstractly and solve problems without just being able to look it up, whether it's on the internet or wherever. But
Absolutely. And
Beautiful.
segueing into our next question here.
So why did you end up doing that swap of your major over into game development? What was the sort of motivating factors there?
right, so around my third year, my junior year of college, while I was studying electrical engineering, I was actually at Utah State University at the time. A friend of mine who was at the at the University of Utah, had told me about their program. It used to be called the Entertainment Arts and Engineering program. It's now called the um, sorry, I know this is recorded, so you may have to
No,
edit
no
this.
worries.
Let me look it up really quick. Because they just changed it. It's like dog. The division of games. So
So that was
it's
the name before. Is this the new
yes.
name?
So it was called the Entertainment Arts and Engineering program, but it's now called the Division of Games. But at the time, the EAE program was mostly a master's program, but it did have a emphasis track for film, which was through the art program or through computer science. So it definitely piqued my interest, and I had the opportunity to transfer down there and begin working towards a computer science degree at the U within the EAE program.
Awesome. Rich, did you have any follow-up questions?
Yeah, when you did change your major over to game development, did you have a specific role in mind, or did you know that you just wanted to do something involving game dev?
I think at the start, I didn't fully know. I was just kind of setting myself on that computer science track, going for like a computer science degree, with programming being the main focus. But I think as I went through my years there at the U, I found I was drawn definitely a little more towards the design side of things, but still retained a lot of that programming um, aptitude and relevant focus. But it definitely prepared me for um, the job I'm in now, because it's like I had mentioned, not uh, a traditional role as far as like designer, engineer, artist, producer are usually like the four main uh, tracks you would think of within the game development space. Um, we kind of like to refer to ourselves as like a jack of all trades in many instances, where we're just familiar with a lot of different things and we'll specialize in a few areas, but we can always turn to those who are even more specialized in areas we're not, and we can transition those help requests or issues and escalate them so that we can get people's problems solved quickly. And that's a skill that you definitely develop over time. It's not something you're just like, I suddenly know how and who to talk to solve this problem. Something you learn over time.
That's a really cool model of working, because it really kind of eliminates that worry of like, hey, something's not working. Oh my God, I'm gonna have to go to the engineering team and they're gonna have to like design a new feature and test it and beta test it. And it's like that's gonna take months. So it's really cool to have somebody who's like an intermediary, right? And people might talk to you and realize they don't have to go to engineering, right? You might be able to help them with a solution or point them in the right direction.
Exactly.
Very cool. And switching back to once again to kind of your majors, to your education, switching from electrical engineering to a game dev to a computer science major, were there any kind of subtle differences, the vibe, the people, like the hobbies that you're into?
Yeah, I would say definitely there was like a shift. Even just going from university to university, there's always subcultures that are slightly different. I was a lot more involved with like the IEEE club at Utah State when I was doing electrical engineering, but uh, at the U, I focused my attention more on the gaming space with Crimson Gaming and the gaming clubs there. So personally, I had that shift just in my focus and like where my energy was being spent.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll jump into our next segment. And this is less of a question and more of a timeline. So we've actually put together a little bit of a career timeline from the information you shared with us. Jordan, could you take a look at this? And does this look accurate? And maybe could you walk us through just a little bit?
Yeah, so this is yeah, this pretty much covers my journey, I would say, starting at least at the University of Utah. So, uh, like I mentioned previous, I was at Utah State and then transferred to the U where I was studying computer science. And then my senior year, they actually opened up a brand new degree called the Bachelor of Science in Games, which they continue to have today, which is actually still through the Department of Computer Science, or School of Computing, however they break that up. But an engineering degree, nonetheless. And so I graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Games at the U. During my last year there and the year after I graduated, I was the head coach for the Hearthstone team, the varsity Hearthstone team there at the U. We took a couple, I believe they were championships, like TESPA championships titles we won during my time there. And they've continued to be quite successful in years after. After that, I actually worked in esports at Space Station Gaming for a year directly after I graduated. Prior to my time at R. Donnelly, I was a kind of their like operations manager. I helped manage a lot of the teams and ran their gaming house space and whatnot. And then I transitioned to a more traditional programming job at R. Donnelly, who is they're like a business communications company. I did a lot of like application development. A lot of data comes in. We make a PDF and send it out to these giant printers in our warehouse of printers. Think like your bank statements, insurance cards, W-2 tax forms, things like that. Like all the mail that you get that isn't junk mail, like you kind of need these documents. Those are usually the types of documents we would process and print for various companies. I learned a lot working there, really kind of honed my skills in Python, actually. So it was a really good time and opportunity for me to work in a real professional programming environment. From there, I went to Blizzard Entertainment, worked as a test analyst on World of Warcraft, primarily the like the raids and dungeons, or they call it the encounters team. Really loved working there. A lot of wonderful people, very talented people. And then found the opportunity to work at Bungie, and that's where I am now. Started as a production engineer and later moved into a senior production engineer position in the past year, and just love it. It's a great place to work. So many incredible people, talented people, and it's a great place to be.
That's perfect. Thank you for that overview. And that actually leads directly into the next question, which is, so now between Blizzard and now Bungie, how has your time been working with AAA studios? Which you kind of answered a little bit there, but also I'm kind of curious how it compares to your previous work, either at RRD or in college.
Yeah, so working at AAA studios, it's really been incredibly fulfilling. I would say I really enjoy working with teams, with larger teams, and in a AAA studio environment, there's no short supply of large teams and projects to be involved with. My only other game dev experience outside of AAA were more of the smaller scoped projects I worked on in college. The largest team I had there was maybe 15 or 16 of us, which it's still a larger, college project. Most school projects are maybe 2 or 3 people, but it was a really good experience there as well. One of the nice things though about the larger AAA environments is you have other people you can rely on, and not a lot, but just redundancy to be able to cover for each other. If you want to take time off, you're not feeling like the entire project is just going to suffer because you wanted to take a day or a week to spend time with family or go on a trip. So that's not to say other like indie studios or smaller studios don't also have that benefit, but I definitely feel that support, at least in a larger studio setting.
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
And how did you, I guess, kind of first get your foot through the door, going from a more traditional Python programming job at R. Donnelly going to Blizzard Entertainment?
So I had been applying for jobs for several years at Blizzard actually, and other studios. And I believe when I look back, it was about 3 or 4 years of just applying for jobs on and off. I had made several friends, both personal and professional friends through networking during school, as well as just through playing games. Like one of my best friends I met through my World of Warcraft guild, just through raiding, and I still we still play games all the time. And he and his wife helped me apply and interview for the test analyst job that I ended up actually getting. And so really networking is a huge component of kind of getting in the door. People say it's not what you know, it's who you know. It's both. It really, you can't just get through on, knowing people, but it definitely helps get you at least that first interview. And then they can see like, oh, you also have the qualifications, or you're a good fit for what you're applying for. So big ups to like network is one of the most valuable things you can do while you're either in school or building up your skills.
Would you have any other advice for students, college or in school, looking to kind of pursue a similar career pathway?
Definitely. So if you're looking to do engineering in particular, start programming. There's such a massive wealth of knowledge and information to you out there, both free and paid, like coding boot camps, YouTube series, etc. And if you're just starting out, like something as simple as like Python is a great first language to learn. While C++ and C# are both staples in the game industry when it comes to programming, but you don't have to really worry. I wouldn't worry about specializing in any one thing too early. Just learning how to think like an engineer, or learning how to solve problems in an efficient way are all great skills to develop.
Absolutely. Rich, did you have any follow-up questions?
I think we might be ready to hit the next one when you are, Peter.
Sounds good. So can you maybe tell us a little bit about the day-to-day as a senior production engineer at Bungie? What typically goes into a day of work?
So this is a fun question because I almost never know exactly what I'm going to do from day to day. It's always a new day, a new set of problems. Sometimes I'll look at my calendar and be like, okay, I have a couple meetings that I can plan on, but it's always an adventure, sometimes, at least when it comes to like solving problems that if I already knew they existed and I already knew they were a thing, like I wouldn't have a job. No, but really like it comes down to, like I mentioned before, like understanding what is a production engineer. And we like to use the term force multipliers, which basically means we are in that space not to just be another designer, not to just be another artist, but through our efforts, it's as though there were multiple more designers or artists, because we're empowering those other developers to do their best work without being blocked. So one of the more recent things I've had the opportunity to work on is just burning down bugs, doing things that might take a designer more time to dig into and investigate if they don't have all the context behind that, and freeing that time up for them to continue working on the tasks they're assigned. And so a group of PEs and we've been able to just go and burn through some of these bugs, and in the process learn a little deeper about like how do these different systems and whatnot work across the entire game, which has been really fun and fulfilling for me at least. But as part of that, also getting to be more part of the direct development pipeline and working with producers and artists and designers and getting their insight without kind of breaking them out of their pipeline and their development trajectory, as it were.
Very well said. Yeah, back when you were giving sort of an explanation of your role, I couldn't decide whether grease between the wheels or glue between the creases or I couldn't decide a better analogy, but I like the force multiplier. Maybe it's like springs between the wedges or something like that.
Yeah,
Apparently,
I
force
think
multiplier is more eloquent.
Yeah.
I
Maybe we
think a
don't need
spring
the
is a good
analogy.
analogy. Taking some of that force and then expanding it in another direction, or
The springs under their boots, something like that.
There you
right.
go.
If I could ask Jordan, what was the your favorite thing that you've worked on, and why was it your favorite?
Currently, or like in general.
Uh, Maybe in your time at Bungie.
Um, one of my favorite things that I've worked on that I could talk about, of course, in the past expansion, Lightfall, there's an activity that kind of escalates as you go through it, through different phases, and it requires you to kind of complete it within a certain time frame, and uh, it actually takes place in 3 different locations across the destination, and I was able to help the designer who was in charge of that through several different instances, because it was kind of a new type of activity we hadn't ever made before, and so there were a lot of new types of challenges and problems that arose as trying to solve how do we make this work and scalable so that we can build it in these different places. And so that was one of my more recent things I worked on that I really enjoyed working with that designer on.
That's really cool. It's like a kind of like mini game that you find in the world.
Kind of, yeah. It's a little more obvious. It's like right there on the map. But yeah, it was a new type of activity we'd never done, and it was certainly challenging, but it turned out great, and I believe the players really enjoyed it.
Cool. And curiosity is getting the better of me. If I can ask what your favorite thing is overall that you've worked on, because you had to specify.
That you can tell us,
Well,
of course.
That you could tell us. Yeah.
um,
I mean, outside of Bungie, whether it be any of your
I'll
past.
say outside of Bungie so that we can
Yeah.
scope it and separate it. I really loved working on the Torghast raid for World of Warcraft, and doing a lot of the testing and tuning for that raid. It was a lot of fun being able to work with the designers for those encounters and kind of think through their process of how, and seeing from like start, like very initial stages to fully finished finished product of how those encounters develop from beginning to end.
And you mentioned that when people go into game development, they kind of usually go into 4 categories, right? You mentioned like artists.
Yeah, within game development, there's kind of 4 buckets. I use that kind of loosely, but generally there's like the art disciplines and the engineering disciplines and the design disciplines and the production disciplines, and I should add a 5th of like the test or QA discipline. Those 5 all kind of come together, and different studios do things differently across the board, but almost universally you'll see those 5 different roles um, in game development.
And I'm assuming in your role as a production engineer, you kind of almost get to interface with all of the teams that are at Bungie, or with most of the disciplines?
Yep. In my current role, I interface with all of the above on a daily basis, pretty much.
So I'm kind of building this up to a question, because are there any like disciplines or teams that you really, really like, I don't want to say enjoy working with, but you really like look forward to the work, and then some of the, some other department, you're like, wow, I'm in for a long day. It like, how does the work differ from, I guess, department to department?
I wouldn't say there's any like discipline I don't enjoy working with more than another necessarily, because they each have their own set of challenges. Um, like working with engineers are definitely different than working with artists, in any in any setting, not just at Bungie. Um, and and so I would say I just love working with really talented people, and we have so many talented people at Bungie, and it's almost weekly I have to like proverbially pinch myself and be like, yep, I still work here. It's still it's not just a dream. But it's such a fun opportunity to be able to make games, and then to see uh people play those games and enjoy those experiences that you've worked so hard to create for them.
That's so awesome.
Good answer. That was a good politician answer too, as well. Well done there. So speaking of all these different disciplines, actually our next question is kind of one, we have a graphic here of some of these different disciplines that we were talking about. And we actually did touch on this a little bit earlier before, where you gave the advice for somebody going into computer engineering or computer science to just start programming, and you named a few languages there. Kind of building off that, what other things do you think students who might want to pursue computer science or game dev in similar avenues of what might you suggest?
Yeah, really, projects are so important when it comes to building your skills, as well as like when it comes time to interviewing for jobs, or you're trying to apply for jobs, whether it's after college or during internships. So just start with a small project, build on that. Game jams are also really good opportunities to work with other people. As small as like a team of two. I've had friends that work on game jams. It's just them and one other person, and they've had really good experiences with that. So really just start small. You don't have to start working on a AAA game to be in game development. Just start, on a personal project. There's so many resources out there to be able to just get your hands dirty and jump right in.
Learn skills, build that portfolio.
And
Absolutely.
I'm curious, Jordan, have you had any experience with programming before kind of starting your degree in computer science?
Nope. I had zero experience doing any programming before my first semester in college. I went into, I think it was called Computer Science 1400 or something, and they started teaching us C++, and we made our Hello World project. And I had never coded a line in my life before that. So you don't have to have years and years of experience in high school. If you do, it's all the better. But it's definitely not a prerequisite to just getting started today.
And one more question for me, and I apologize, Rich. I know I'm hogging Jordan onto myself, but jumping ahead to when you were actually interviewing at Blizzard, interviewing at Bungie, right? And maybe in your experience, if you've had to hire and interview people, right, for your departments, what are kind of the main things that you think recruiters at Bungie, at Blizzard look at, right? Is it just the education? Is it the projects, the experience? Like, is it the passion, or a combination of all these things?
Right. And without speaking too specifically for like hiring practices or anything, just in my experience, you can teach skills. It's a lot harder to teach or to build out a person that's going to be able to grow into a role or to fill a role, like those softer skills, right? Um, some roles having those hard skills um, are just a prerequisite. Like you can't go apply for a database engineer position and not know SQL or whatever database language they're using. Like it's not gonna work out for you. However, you're also a person, and they're hiring people to work with other people. And so if you're not going to work well with others, you're going to have a hard, and that will show in your interview. And so uh, you want to make sure that you are, as you go through school and whether it's grade school or college or trade school or some other means of building out your skills, that you're developing those softer skills as well, that you're able to work well as a teammate, that you're contributing. The joke of, school projects always fall on the shoulders of one or two people. Don't let those people that fall by the wayside be you. You want to be the ones that are contributing, and that always will show in those interviews. If you're the team player, if you're the person who's going to work well in that team setting, that's a very important skill that you can't just teach through mentoring on the job type thing. So that would definitely set people apart if I were interviewing, trying to hire someone.
Absolutely, very well said. And do you think gaming helps build any of those soft skills?
Absolutely. It can go both ways, of course. Like, don't be a toxic player. My small soapbox that I will put down right now. But yeah, gaming is such a great medium for connecting with other people in a way that few other things can, really. And so it builds those communication skills even at an early age, whether it's just reading or comprehension, but also as you start playing with other people, like learning how to interact in those social situations. It is such a valuable thing that gaming just kind of naturally does, because we make games for people and people play games. And so inherently they're going to interact with each other, whether it's inside or outside of that game.
Yeah, absolutely. Great answer. But we're gonna actually jump to our last question right here. So why do you think schools today, K-12, collegiate, and beyond, should support their students' love of gaming?
Right. So like games are no longer just this novelty cabinet in a dimly lit arcade. It's there's so much more than that now. Like millions of people every day connect with each other through games around something that they're passionate about, and there's so many jobs and careers in the gaming space. It would be foolish not to uh, empower students to pursue those things that they're passionate about, especially because there are so many opportunities and careers in that space already, whether it's game development or production or education, and of course esports as well. And some of the most incredible technologies that we see today are inspired by those game development environments and production, as well as like you see movies or other entertainment media that all benefit from things like VR or motion capture, and then even just game IPs like Mario or The Last of Us or Halo, all contribute to that cultural media that we all engage with.
How might you suggest some ways that schools today or school leaders could support their students in their love of gaming?
I would say that the most important thing is not to dismiss it, to recognize it as not just the stereotypical, oh, it's just something you do to pass the time or to waste time. Like, recognize those skill building opportunities within games, whether that's building teamwork, building communication skills, or even more of the harder skills like opportunities to make games, to build programming skills, to build production skills, and taking that passion for gaming and building on it rather than just kind of hiding it or pushing it to the side.
Love that. And if I can jump on that soapbox with you, I think it is super important to teach things like non-toxicity and, maintaining mental and communication. And these are all skills, like you said, that can be taught through gaming if they aren't pushed aside and dismissed, right? So, very much love that. And please continue to talk on that soapbox. Love it. Love it. Love it. That being said, I think we might be out of time here.
I think you are correct, Rich. So unfortunately, this means this is the end of our time with Jordan. We want to thank all of our viewers and listeners, but most of all, Jordan, we want to thank you for joining us today and speaking to us and sharing this awesome information and insights.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Awesome.
Thank you so
Well,
much.
happy gaming,
everybody. Bye-bye.